This is it. This is the Exodus route. This is it here. The Exodus of Moses and the Hebrews leaving the land of Goshen, leaving Egypt, Upper Egypt, on their way to the Promised Land. This is it here. Now, the route, the journey that Moses and the Hebrews began to take is not where and what many think that it is. Scholars and archaeologists, they make the claim that the Hebrews, they left on their journey out of Egypt in this location, starting from here. They placed Goshen in Lower Egypt, and they have built many theories on this location of Goshen, which is the wrong location. They built many theories that the Hebrews, they crossed this body of water, which is purported to be the Red Sea, which is wrong. This is not the Red Sea here. The Red Sea is not in this location. But this is what the theories claim. And these theories, again, they're by scholars of academia. The Hebrews crossed this body of water in this location or over here, and they took their journey all the way down the Saudi Arabia, came here, this way, and up, and then they had to come back this way to the so-called Israel. But this is incorrect. The route is incorrect, the location is incorrect. The location of Goshen is all incorrect. All those theories from scholars of academia, they are built on wrong information. Now, on maps today, all maps tend to show only Lower Egypt. Upper Egypt has been removed. You will not see any maps that has Upper Egypt. There's a map here. All maps, again, all maps today only show Lower Egypt. Upper Egypt has been removed. And that's thanks to the scramble for Africa. They conveniently removed Upper Egypt. And that is due to the information that it has been stolen and kept hidden. But thanks to Thutmose I, one of the pharaohs of Egypt, he made extensive improvements on Upper Egypt. He did this by expanding and extending the borders of Upper Egypt all the way to the Euphrates River, and then he extended it west to the kingdom of Aram. Aram is Syria, and Aram is located in Namibia, southwest Africa, in the Comas Highland Plateau region. And it is covered up by the place named Windhoek. But this is information that lets us know the true location of Syria. Syria was never in the Southwest Asia location. Syria has always been in Namibia, in the Comas Highland Plateau region. But that's where the Pharaoh, Thutmose I, he extended the borders of Upper Egypt to Aram, to the Euphrates River. And this is how Upper Egypt, the borders, this is how they look, the extensive improvements done by Thutmose I. This is all Upper Egypt, all of this. And again, this Upper Egypt has been removed from maps, and we're going to place it right back on the map so that we can gather correct information. So this is Upper Egypt, and Goshen is located at the southernmost border of Upper Egypt. This is Goshen here. Goshen expanded the countries, 3 countries, the countries of Zambia, Zimbabwe, and Botswana. That's the expanse of Goshen. And we get this from scripture. In Genesis chapter 46, verse 29, to 34, Joseph, he's preparing to meet his family, Jacob and his brothers. They were coming to Goshen. And it reads in Psalm 29, Joseph had his chariot made ready and went to Goshen to meet his father Israel. As soon as Joseph appeared before him, he threw his arms around his father and wept for a long time. And Jacob, who was called Israel, said to Joseph, "Now I am ready to die, since I have seen for myself that you are alive." In verse 31, then Joseph said to his brothers and to his father's household, and take note of what Joseph is about to say. Joseph said to them, "I will go up and speak to Pharaoh, and will say to him, my brothers and my father's household, who are living in the land of Canaan, have come to me. The men are shepherds. They tend livestock, and they have brought along their flocks and herds and everything they own." And Joseph, he proceeded on to say, "When Pharaoh calls you and asks you what is your occupation, you should tell Pharaoh, your servants have tended livestock from our boyhood on, just as our fathers did." And Joseph wanted his brothers to say that to Pharaoh so that they can live in the land of Goshen. And this is what Joseph says to them. It reads, "Then you will be allowed to settle in the region of Goshen, for all shepherds are detestable to the Egyptians." Now in verse 31, when Joseph say, I will go up and speak to Pharaoh, that lets us know that Joseph's current location in Goshen is south of Pharaoh. This is Goshen. This is where Joseph and his brothers and father came, and that is south of Pharaoh. Pharaoh is located here in Lower Egypt, and Joseph was located here in Upper Egypt. And this is where Jacob and the rest of the tribes, they came from Beersheba and came here to Goshen. So this is evidence. This is a piece of evidence that let us know that Goshen is located in Upper Egypt, the southernmost border of Upper Egypt. Now in Genesis chapter 45, verse 18, Pharaoh, he gives Goshen, the best land of Egypt, he gives that to the Hebrews. And that is one reason for Pharaoh to put the Hebrews in Goshen. One was that the Goshen was the best land for pasture. And looking at the map, you can see all this greenery is the best land for pasture. The other reason is what Joseph mentioned, that the Hebrews are an abomination or detestable to the Egyptians. And that had to do with the Egyptians being vegetarians while the Hebrews were meat eaters. You see, the Hebrews, they could not sit down and eat with the Egyptians because the Egyptians were vegetarians and the Hebrews were meat eaters. That means the Hebrews, they did a lot of sacrifice. That means the Hebrews, they were eating the animals that the Egyptians held as various gods, as deity, as worthy of their worship. These different gods were eaten by the Hebrews. They were used as sacrifice. Not all of them, but those that the Hebrews considered clean. Those animals, they were used for sacrifice, but the Egyptian held them to be deity, different forms of gods. And so that was detestable and abomination to the Egyptians. And as a result of that, Pharaoh, he put the Hebrews all the way in Upper Egypt at Goshen, the southernmost border. Now we must keep this in mind so that we can gather correct information. And we have to keep in mind that Egypt is Mizraim. Mizraim refers to the two lands. There's Upper Egypt and Lower Egypt. There's Mizrah and Aim. They refer to two lands. They are pharaohs. They refer to Egypt. They never call Egypt Egypt. Egypt means bondage. They refer to Egypt as the two lands, or the divided land. That's how some of the pharaohs and the Egyptians, so-called Egyptians, refer to their country as the two lands. But again, on all maps, we only see the Lower Egypt. Upper Egypt has been removed, but we're going to put it back on the map so that we can gather correct information and begin our look at the Exodus route, the route that Moses and the Hebrews took. Now, Moses and the Hebrews, they began their journey by leaving and going to Ramesses and then Succoth. Both of these are in Goshen. And it's possible that they're northeast area, either somewhere up in here. In this region here is going to be where Pithom and Ramesses is located. Now the Hebrews, Moses and the Hebrews, they made their way to Etham. They came to Etham after leaving Ramesses and Succoth. They came here to Etham, and Etham is the edge of the wilderness. But we learn in Exodus chapter 14 that the Most High told Moses and the Hebrews to turn back and go back. And he told them to go back and go to Pi-hareroth and to Migdal. And so he sent the Hebrews back to this location here. All of this is called Pi-hareroth. And these are Migdal. Migdal is defined as a watchtower or a raised bed. Now again, this location here, this is Pi-hareroth. That's all of this location here. And the Most High told the Hebrews to encamp in front of Migdal. And again, there are three candidates for the exact Migdal. It's one of these three here. This one, or this one. All three are Migdals. This one here has somewhat of a summit, more like a watchtower. Whereas this Migdal and this Migdal are more like a raised bed. The summit is flat. So the Moses and the Hebrews, they encamp in this area. And they encamp opposite to Baal Zephon. Baal Zephon is located right here. As we zoom in, we can see that this area is an ancient site. A lot of the old features, borders, imprints, and impressions are still visible. And it's clear that this was a place of worship of Baal. There's a staircase going from the foothill all the way up here. But this hill mound, this mountain, this is called Baal Zephon, sometimes spelled with an S and called Mount Zephon. But this is it here. This is Baal Zephon right here. Opposite to Baal Zephon is where the Hebrews camped at, right in front of Migdal. And again, Migdal is going to be this one, or this one. Quite possibly it could be all three. But this is where they camped at. And after that, they stayed there for several days. Then they went back to Etham and entered the wilderness. And they journeyed and made their way to Marah. And Marah is located here. And this is where In chapter 15, verse 23 of the book of Exodus, this is where the Hebrews, they encountered bitter water, which is the meaning of Mara. And there are several rivers located here. But one interesting thing that is noticed is that once the Hebrews came to Mara, the terrain starts to become very rough. Now they're there in the wilderness. Remember, Etham is the age of the wilderness. It's not the wilderness, but it is the age of the wilderness. And we can see in the location where Etham is, the terrain is flat. But as they continue walking, they're walking on flat terrain, and they get to Mara. And now the terrain becomes very rough and rugged. There's a lot of mountains and valleys, trails they have to go through. But from Mara, with the bitter waters, they make their way to Elim. They make their way to Elim. And in Elim, that's where the 12 springs and 70 date trees or palm trees, that's where those things are found and located. Now the springs are still here. The 12 springs are located, they are found, they are visible, they can be seen. However, the palm trees, the date trees, it seems that those trees are long gone, especially in our time. It seems those trees are gone. They are nowhere to be found. But the springs, they can be seen, such as this is one here. Now these springs they're not small, they're huge springs. And this is one here. And these springs are natural. None of them are man-made. That's one spring there. And keep in mind we are in Elim, and we are viewing this through satellite. And here's another spring. That's 2. This is 3. That's 2. This is 3. Over here, this is 4. And let's go over here. This is 5. And 6. And let's go over here. There's another one here. This one is 7. Number 7. Over here, this is 8. And okay, here's one here. This is 9. Okay, right here. Going by the numbers. This one here is 10. And this is 11. And over here is 12. Let me zoom in here. Get a good look at the spring. Now, it's the spring here, and like I said, they're huge. They're not small. This object here, this is a house. And looking at the house in relation to the spring, we can get a good view of the size of these springs. They were not small springs, they were a good size. But that's number 12. And all of this is Elim. And the date trees, they are not located. Now, even though there's 12 springs, and this is on top of a mountain, there are more springs below the mountain. And there's one here. This is a spring here, and that's below the mountain at the foothill. There's one here, and there's another one. This is another spring located there. And there's another spring here. But these springs are at the foothill of the mountain. On the mountain, there are 12 springs, and that location of these springs are, that is what the Hebrews call Elim. Now let's backtrack a little bit. Before the Hebrews left Ramesses and Succoth, while they were in Goshen, and during their tenure in Goshen, one thing that needs to be addressed is the distance. When the Most High sent Moses and Aaron to Pharaoh, one of the questions that comes up is, did Moses and Aaron travel a long distance to see Pharaoh? Because you see, Goshen is in Upper Egypt, and Pharaoh tends to have its location in Lower Egypt. So the question is, did they travel over 3,000 miles to see Pharaoh? So Moses and the Hebrews, they did not have to travel over 3,000 miles, because the pharaohs during the Egyptian dynasties, the Hyksos, they were Canaanites. They took over the Upper Egypt and Avaris. And Avaris is located in Goshen. Right? Avaris is located in Goshen next to Pithom and Pyramses, the two storage cities that the Hebrews built. Avaris was located there in Goshen, close to those two storage cities. As time went on, the Hyksos, they were expelled, some believe by almost the first, but nonetheless they were expelled out of Upper Egypt. But yet the pharaohs, they continued living in Avaris. And so keep in mind, Avaris is in Goshen. And when the Hyksos were expelled, another pharaoh took over. This was the pharaoh that did not know Joseph. And so some believe the pharaoh of the Exodus was Ramesses. Some believe it was Ahmose the first. But nonetheless, the pharaohs, they had different locations. Avaris was one of them, different locations where they lived. Avaris was one, Thebes was another, and there are many more. But as far as the distance is concerned, when it comes to communication, the Egyptians seemed they were ahead of their time, because they mastered long distance communication. Before, they were using the clay tablets to carry around with them. As time went on, they moved from the clay tablets to the papyrus. As time went on, they had carriers, and they set up different posts. And these posts were somewhat like a network where data travels to different destinations and endpoints. So these posts they set up, they had carriers on horses. They take the message to one post, another carrier take it to another post, and so on and so forth. But as time went on, they became more sophisticated, and they domesticated the pigeon. The pigeon and doves, they're the same bird, the same species. But they domesticated the pigeon, and they found out that once a pigeon leaves its home, it can always find its home back over a long distance. So the Egyptians, they found that out, and they domesticated it. And that was one of the ways, a more sophisticated way of long distance communication that the Egyptians, they were doing. But this type of communication over long distance, it predates the Egyptians. The use of pigeons to communicate predates the Egyptians. And we see that with Noah in the ark. When Noah, he sent out a raven, then he sent out a pigeon or a dove. So the usage of birds to travel long distance to gather information, carry messages, is an old technique that predates the Egyptians. And one interesting thing about that is that the Brits, Great Britain, they continued doing that up until 1940 or 1941. They continued using pigeons to transfer, transmit, carry, gather, collect information over long distances. So that was one sophisticated way of the Egyptians. They were ahead of their times. They were using pigeons, birds, to communicate long distance. But now, as far as Moses is concerned, with the advent of the Hyksos, these Canaanite rulers of Upper Egypt, Moses did not have to travel a long distance by foot, because the Hyksos, they made Avaris their headquarters, and Avaris was located in Goshen, and the Hebrews, they were located in Goshen. So that's something, an interesting fact that needed to be talked about, because it does come up if the Hebrews are in Upper Egypt and Pharaoh is in Lower Egypt, and the Most High sent Moses to Pharaoh, then did he walk over 3,000 miles? The answer is no. Moses, Aaron, they did not walk 3,000 plus miles to see Pharaoh. The Pharaoh, they were in Avaris as well as other locations, and it is possible that Moses had to wait until Pharaoh came to Avaris, because Pharaoh had different locations of living. He just didn't live in Avaris, he lived in Thebes and other locations. So whenever the pharaohs came to Avaris, that's when the Most High sent Moses and Aaron to see them, to see Pharaoh. But now, going back to Elam, after Mara, Elam, and Etham, and the encampment in front of the Migdal in Pi-hahiroth, opposite Baal-Zephon, all of that was a total of 2 months. 2 months time with all of that. And we get this from Exodus chapter 16 verse 1. All of that took a time period of 2 months. From the encampment at Pi-hahiroth, from the journey to Mara, and going to Elam. That's a 2 month time period. And that's according to Exodus chapter 16, verse 1. And the other thing is this. Once they left Elam, they now entered the wilderness of Zin. And one of the events that happened in the wilderness of Zin, besides the crossing of the Red Sea, is manna. That's where the Most High started sending manna to the Hebrews, in the wilderness of Zin. So the Hebrews, they left Elam, they came into the wilderness of Zin, and they journeyed south all the way down here, and made their way to this location here. The Val River crossing, the Yam Suf. This is it here. This is how it looked. This is the body of water that the Hebrews crossed. They did not cross the so-called Red Sea located in the Arabian Peninsula. They didn't go there. They were never in that location. They came here to the Yam Suf, the Val River crossing. And again, we get this here from the cartographers. Many cartographers that drew up maps of Africa, South Africa, they have given us a head up by writing the word Transvaal. When the Hebrews left the Val River, they journeyed and journeyed, and then they encamped They stopped and they made an encampment somewhere in between Dafka. Dafka is over here, between Dafka and the Yamsuf. So it's likely they encamped somewhere in this area here. They stayed there for a few days and continued their journey, and they made it to Dafka. And this is Dafka here. This is how it looked. And Dafka is not what scholars have made it out to be. This has been kept hidden. All of the locations that the Hebrews journeyed to are hidden. But scholars made Dafka out to be is defined in the sense of driving cattle, and that's done in a way where the Hebrews, they were journeying on hilly territory or hilly terrain. And since the terrain has a lot of hills, scholars, they assume that they had to force and push and move with vigor their cattle to go up the hill. But we're looking at the terrain here, and that is not the case. That's the wrong definition of Dafka. And other scholars, they define Dafka as a location where there is a lot of copper. And that's not the case as well. This location of Dafka has no copper around it. There's no copper mines. That's the wrong definition of Dafka. Dafka is correctly defined as, keep in mind, the Hebrews with the Ivri language. They always use the Ivri language in two ways. The letters and words of Ivri always apply in two categories. One is it always applies to a person. It could be the name of a person or a human being. The second category is the Ivri language and letters will apply to nature, to things that exist in the earth or the earth itself. So whatever is in the earth or the earth itself, that's what the Ivri language, the letters and the words, that's what the Hebrews, the original black Jews, that's how they use the Ivri language. That's how they use it in application of describing things that they see in nature, whether those things are mountains, rivers, valleys, roads, trees, plants. They use the language in such a way where they're given a description of what they see. And again, it could apply to the earth or what is in the earth, and it could apply to a person. So we know that this here is not applying to a person, so it's going to be applying to something in the earth or the earth itself. But they're using Dafka to apply to this mountain, and there's actually two of them. And Dafka, the Ivri word for Dafka, is this. It's the D, the P, or PH. The PH is going to make an F sound in Ivri. So it can be a P or an F. And the letter K. Now the letter H is not really needed, but sometimes the H is added there. But it's mainly the there are D, P, and K. Or you can put the H there. So that's the Dafka. That's the Ivri word for Dafka. Now, when we look at the symbol of what the Hebrews had in mind, when we look at the symbol of each letter, we'll see something that's interesting. We'll see why they call this here Dafka. These are mountains, and it's a reason why they call it Dafka. They're giving a description of these mountains. Both of these mountains represent the exact letters, the D, the P, and the K. and also the H as well. So when we take a look at the this is the K. K and also Q can be a Q as well, but this is letter K. Q. Notice a circle or an oval and a line. A circle and a line. And that this is important here. You have that one, and this is the F, PH or F sound, and an oval shape for that one, and this is the letter D, a line, and the square here. The ancient one is going to be a circle. They're not really a square. But basically, the square and the circle is going to be the same thing. So a line, and then an opening. And again, this is the F, or the P and H. An oval shape, an opening. And this opening is somewhat circular. It's not a perfect circle, but it is an opening and somewhat circular. This is an oval, and the Kof again. A circle and a line. Oval, an opening, and a line. Now, those are the pictographs of each letter in the word Dafka, except for the H. The H represents a tent with a line drawn in the middle, and the line represents dividing the tent in half. So now when we look at this mountain, look at these mountains here. A circle, and these mountains represent a circle. It's not an exact circle, but it is somewhat circular. And this one here is somewhat circular. And there's a circle and another line. And here's a line here. And this one, somewhat of a circle. A line there, and a line here. And now the H, again, it represents the tent. This is a tent to the Hebrews, the original black Jews, and the division. The division of the tent that the original black Jews had. There was a line division in the middle of the tent that divided the men's side from the women. They had separate sides where they slept at. They were in the same tent, but on different sides, and it was a wall there. So to the original black Jews, this represents their tent with a division. This represents each letter, the D, the K, and the H, the P, the K, and the H, or the F. PH can be F in Hebrew. So this mountain represents the word Dafka, as well as the H, which is head. In Hebrew, this is going to be head. And head represents the tent. So for the original black Jews, when they saw this mountain, this put in their mind, their tent and the word Dafka. They call it Dafka. That's what this put in their mind, a dwelling place. And it represents their living quarters, this mountain here. So this is Dafka. And again, this mountain represents each letter of the word Dafka. Each letter shows a mouth, an opening, and then a line drawn within that opening. And this is why the original black Jews, they called these two mountains Dafka. So this is where they came and they rest. They encamp right here, either on top of the mountain or at the foothill of the mountain. So they rest there, and after Dafka, they made their way to Alush. Now, a lush is going to take on the same characteristics. A lush represents a division and teeth, two front teeth. This is the division here, and these represents the two front teeth. All of this here. Both these are mountains, and these represents teeth. For the entire word a lush. This is why the original black Jews, they called this mountain, these two mountains, a lush, because it represents division and then two front teeth. And so a lush, the Hebrew word for a lush, is the L, the S, and the H. The L, the S, and H. And again, H represents the intent, a division, a line. And L is a lamad, represents a staff. And this could be the staff here as well in teaching. S is samak, or shed. Not shed, shin, excuse me, shin. Samak or shin, either one of those. And that's going to represent two front teeth. And also shin is where we get the word sin from. But the original black Jews, they're not having mind sin when they see this mountain here and the shape of it. They had in mind teeth to cut and divide. And that's the reason why they call this mountain the lush. The lush because of their division that you see here. That's the lamad, and that's the het. Every letter het. This division here. And then the S, which is your samak, or it can be the shin. That is represented by these mountains here and here, the division of it in the form of a teeth, two front teeth. And with two front teeth, you cut and divide. So with all of that, a lush represents a divided mountain. Because with the two front teeth, you cut and divide. Het represents a division where there's two sides. And again, het represents the intent to divide the men's side from the women's side. And here's the division here, and you have two sides. And lamet is a staff. And the staff was used with the sheep to divide them up and put them in different groups as well. And then the Shanat. So this is why this mountain is called a lush. So they came from Dafka, came to this mountain, a lush, and they stayed here for a number of days. And after the encampment at Lush, they journeyed and they made their way to Rephidim. Rephidim, right here. This is Rephidim. Now the key to understanding the location and what Rephidim is what the original black Jews, what the Hebrews, what they said in scripture. And what they said is this. They said they came to a place where there is no water. The phrase where there is no water, that phrase implies that there's supposed to be or there should be water in a certain area, but when they got there, there was no water. That phrase is said with the expectation of water being in a certain location. But once the Hebrews arrived, there was no water. And so that's the connotation of the phrase. It is said, it is written in a sense of expectation of water in a certain location. And so all of these here, these like ponds, they're not ponds, but they're like ponds. They represent the shape of a pond. But these are huge. These are huge openings, depressions in the earth where water used to be, and it is dried up. These are huge depressions where water used to be, and it is dried up. This is what the original black Jews, the Hebrews, this is what they call Rephidim. And as many of these depressions in the earth where water used to be, but it is dried up. This is Rephidim. This is Rephidim. That's Rephidim. This one here as well. And here you have a lot of these openings, these opening pond-like structures, and they're huge. Pond-like structures that are depressions in the earth where water used to be, but now it is dried up. And that's what the black Jews, that's what they call Rephidim. And so they encamped here, and they complained to Moses about water because they were expecting it. They were expecting the water to be in these ponds. When they got here, there was no water, and so they complained. And this is the reason for the complaint, because the location did not meet their expectation. So they left this here. They stayed here for a number of days, and they left. They left Rephidim, and then they encountered the Amalekites. They had to make war with the Amalekites, and they're still in the wilderness of Zin. But they're making their way. They're getting close to the Sinai wilderness. They're getting close to the Sinai wilderness. And before they got to that wilderness, the Sinai wilderness, they had to fight off the Amalekites. The Amalekites, they are located in this area here. They're located, they were spread out in the Sinai and wilderness of Zin area. So they encounter the Amalekites, they fight them off, they give them a beating, and then after that they make their way to Kadesh Barnea. And all of this is Kadesh here. Kadesh, and Midian is also in Kadesh. Midian is where Terah is located, also where Jethro is located as well. But they leave the Rephidim, come to Kadesh Barnea, and they come here to this location here. These are conglomerates of mountain ranges. A conglomerate of mountain ranges. This is the location. This is the place. This is where Mount Sinai, also called Horeb, this is where Mount Sinai is. Mount Sinai is different from it's not the same mountain that Moses hit when he split the rock and the waters came gushing out. That was a different mountain. That was a different rock. And this one here, it is questionable. It might not be the exact rock, but this one has a characteristic, a feature of a rock where it has been dug out, an opening that normally that should not be there, but is there. And this opening right here, in this rock, this mountain, it is a possibility, it is a candidate for the rock that Moses struck. This one here. When we look at the area of this mountain and look at other mountains to compare it, this is the only one that has this opening as if it has been dug out as it has been gutted out. This is the only one with this characteristic, this feature. And so that makes it a candidate for the mountain where the waters were gushing out, where Moses and Aaron hit the rock in anger, and they credited themselves. Shall we give you water from this rock? Was their statement. They gave the credit to themselves, and in the process they angered the Most High by not giving the Most High the credit. Moses and Aaron took the credit by saying, shall we give you water from this rock? But this is a prime candidate for the rock. Again, this is a prime candidate for the rock that Aaron and Moses struck, due to this gash. And it looks like a deep gash, like it was gutted out right up in here. And again, Mount Sinai is located on one of these ranges. This is the original, the historical, the ancient, the biblical and scriptural Mount Sinai. This is it here. This is how it looked. This is its shape. And this is its topology. Mount Sinai is one mountain among several mountains on a conglomerate of mountain ranges. This is the original Mount Sinai, the one that Moses and the original black Jews received the commandments from the Most High. This is where that event took place. This is it here. Mount Sinai is also called Mount Horeb, and according to Paul in his letters, he lets us know that the original black Jews during the first century, and maybe prior, they also referred to Mount Sinai as Hagar. But this is it here. Mount Sinai is covered up with the place name Magwatanan, and that is located in the district of the Northern Cape. Now pay close attention to this word here. Sayanda is the district of the Northern Cape in South Africa. And in this word, Sayanda, we're going to find the Hebrew word, the Ivri word, Sinai. The S-I-N-A-Y, right here. There is a play on words. Not only is there a place name used, Magwatanang, used to cover up Mount Sinai, there's an additional play on words, Sayanda, used to continue the covering and hiding and concealing of Mount Sinai. But this also gives us a clue with the play on words, because again, in this word Sayanda, there's the Ivri word Sinai. The letters are rearranged, but the same letters are located here in Sayanda. But this is it here, Mount Sinai, and it stands at 1,552 feet. Excuse me, meters rather. 1,552 meters high. That puts this mountain over 5,000 feet. Over 5,000 feet high. Mount Sinai, this is it here, is no longer covered up. It is revealed. It is shown. It is uncovered now. This is Mount Sinai, the original ancient one, the real one here. Now they stay here for a while, and then they make their way. They journey, and they come to Kibroth Hattaavah. Kibroth Hattaavah. Now this one is somewhat difficult to locate because of the scarcity of information and mainly the terrain itself. But it is a strong possibility that it is in this area. Kibroth Hattaavah. This is located between Sinai, Mount Sinai, and Hazroth. And it's possible that it is located in this area here. And this is due to what is in the terrain. In this area, there are some structures and features. Our view, we're looking at this through a satellite, and our view, as we zoom in, our view becomes blurry, so that we cannot tell and see exactly what these features are. And these little dots, all these little dots here, as we zoom in, our view becomes blurred, but we can see that there are some features, some structures in the terrain. All these small dots all along here. There's a structure there. This is a tree. There's a tree. And in front, between these trees, there's some little dots and features and structures right there. As if these are plots, look like. But we can't be sure of that. But let's hear with these structures in this land where our view is blurred, keeping us from seeing what exactly these things are. This location makes it a candidate for the location of Kibroth Hattaavah. It's one, and that there are other locations with the kind of similar features. And there's another one. The more we zoom in, the more blurred our view becomes. Again, the same little dots meshed together over here and over here. Now, Kibroth Hattaavah, this is where the people that lusted, complained for food, this is where they were put to death and were buried. The Most High put them to death, he fed them, then he killed them, and they were buried in this location here. So this is our Kibroth Hattaavah. They stayed here for a little while. Then they journeyed to the net station. The net station they came to is here, Hazroth. This is Hazroth. And in Hazroth, these are pits, depressions within the earth. And within these pits, this is what the original black Jews, this is what they call Hazroth. Now this is Hazroth. This is what the black Jews call Hazroth. And Hazroth, as we zoom in, Hazroth is a depression in the earth where the perimeter around that depression, it is made up of small stones and with twigs and bushes. A depression in the earth where the perimeter around the depression is made up of stone. Some of them is made up of a mixture of twigs and bushes. And this one here seems to be made up of stones, limestone. And the Hebrews, they dwelt within this hollowed out area. And there's a lot of them, a lot of the Hazroth, as the black Jews called them. And we find this here in Numbers chapter 11, verse 35, where it says that the Hebrews, they journeyed from Kibroth Hattaavah to the Hazroth. So this is it here. This is one here. And there are many more pits with the same structure and features. There's another one here. As we zoom in, our vision becomes blurred, more blurred. But we can see the outline, the shape, the perimeter of what has been called Hazroth. This is where they dwelt on this station stop here. And there's another one here. Now the whiteness that we are seeing, and keep in mind this is a desert area. The Hebrews, they're journeying in the desert. And the whiteness that we are seeing, the desert is not this color. This is done through satellite for the sole purpose of blocking our view, blocking the vision of seeing what is really in this terrain, how this terrain is really structured and set up. As we zoom in on Hazroth, we don't have a clear picture of it, and that's due to the blockage of the satellite. But this is Hazroth. Now the next station, they stayed here for a few days, and they journeyed to the next station, which is Rithma. Rithma is wetlands, and even though this is showing the same thing as white in a desert, this is not the color of it. But these are wetlands. Rithma refers to a type of plant called geneticists, and the common name for it is a broom bush. Geneticists is a plant that grows in these wetlands. In these wetlands, it grows different fruits and vegetations and different type of plants and trees. And among that is geneticists. Geneticists is commonly called the broom bush. And the original black Jews, they called the geneticists, which is commonly called the broom bush, they call it Rithma. And this is his location here in a wetland. This is a wetland, this is a wetland. Also, this is a wetland as well. And so they stayed here for a few days and journeyed to the next station, which is called Ramon Perez. Now the Ramon is the Hebrew word for a pomegranate. Perez is really Peret. Perez, this is spelled incorrect. It's not P-E-R-E-Z. It's P-A-R-E-T, Peret. And the Peret has a base word, a root word, which is para. But both of these words means to divide in two, to make more, to split in half. And that is referring to this, divided waters. This is Peret. Peret means to divide, to split in half. Now, in order to divide something, there must be first something to divide, and that something is this river that is called Malopo River. This river, Malopo River, is divided into two parts. And the division of the Malopo River lets us know the location of the next stop, Ramon Perez. So the original black Jews, they were letting us know that Ramon Perez is located next to divided waters. And this is it here. All these are Ramon Perez, where pomegranates are found. And all of this here, Ramon Perez. And also this is currently today, this is a farm. This is a farmland where not just pomegranates are grown, but different other fruits and vegetation are grown here as well. And these are somewhat of a wetland as well. So they stayed here for a while, for several days, and they journeyed to their next stop, the next station, which is Lebanon. Now Lebanon, this refers to a small village, where this small village is family oriented, or all of the people involved that are dwelling in this small village, they all are family. You see, Lebanon is the every word, the L, B, N, and H. The L is Lamet, which is their staff, the shepherd's staff used to divide and direct the sheep. The B is the Bet. Bet refers to the tent or the house, the dwelling and living quarters. And the N is Nun. That refers to seed, offspring, future, continuing of the seed. And the H, which is Het, that refers to the tent, the dwelling place as well, but with a division down the middle of that tent that divides the men quarters from the women quarters. So there's an emphasis on the dwelling place with Het and Bet, and then a division, and Nun being the family. And again, Nun being the family. So Libna refers to the village that is completely family oriented. A small family village, small family town. And this is what we're looking at here. We see the perimeters, the borders, and the imprints and impressions of something that was here, a small town, a small village, a family village. That is the meaning of Lipna, the next station stop. And that's one location there, the other one here. As we zoom in and it loads. Now this one, we don't have the perimeters, but yet we have the imprint and impression, letting us know that there was some structure, ancient structure, located here. Another one was here, and another one is located here. And according to the word, the Hebrew word Libna, these ancient structures were family housing, dwelling, living quarters. A small village or town located here. So now this is Libna. This is where the original black Jews, they dwelt here for a number of days. And after Libna, they went to their next station, Rissa. They went to Rissa, and after Rissa, there are 23 more stations that the original black Jews with Moses that they went to. And those stations are located all in this region here. Now after those, well, included within the 23 additional stations are the two stations, one being Edom and the other being Moab. You see, when the Jews with Moses, when they came to Edom, Moses, he sent out a request to Edom, requesting to pass through the land of Edom. But Moses' request was denied, and the Edomites, they came out with the intentions of war. But the Most High told Moses not to make war with the Edomites, because they are his brothers, and that all the land of Edom belongs to Edom only, and the Most High was not going to give anything in the land to the Hebrews. But the Most High told Moses that if you want to buy water and food from the Edomites, that you can do, but do not make war with them. So the result of that is that Moses and the original black Jews, they ended up dwelling in the territory, near the territory of Edom for 19 years. They stayed here for 19 years in Edom. After that, they went to Moab, and Moses, he did the same thing. He sent out a request to the Moabites, requesting to pass through their land. But Moses, his request was denied again. And the Most High told Moses not to make war with the Moabites because the Moabites are your brothers. And everything that's in the land of the Moabites belongs to them. There's nothing in the land that I'm going to give to you, Moses. So when the Most High told Moses that, after that, Moses and the Hebrews, they ended up dwelling in the area, the region of Moab, for an additional 19 years. And within the 40th year, the Most High told Moses to go on up top on Mount Abarim, which is this mountain here. This is all Abarim. To go up on Mount Abarim and go to the highest plateau. And that plateau is called Pisgah. And this is where Moses stood. Mount Abarim is also referred to as Mount Nebo. This is Pisgah, the highest plateau of this mountain. This is where Moses stood. And the Most High allowed Moses to get a good view of the Promised Land. Now, the only part of the Promised Land that Moses was looking at was the tribe of Judah. The tribe of Judah. All of this is the tribe of Judah. Mount Nebo is in the territory of Judah. So Moses, he saw the Dead Sea, Jericho, Qumran caves, and quite possibly Jerusalem. So he saw all this, and then Moses died. Now this is the journey, the route to the Promised Land. This is the route that the original black Jews, they took. They started their journey from Goshen, which is located in Botswana, Zambia, and Zimbabwe. They started here in Goshen from Ramesses and Pithom and made their way south and then west to the Promised Land. The original black Jews, they were never located in Lower Egypt. They never was in this area, and they never began their journey from this area. They started in Goshen in Upper Egypt to the southernmost border of Upper Egypt. And another piece of information that clarifies, that justifies, that authenticate the true location of Goshen, that is Jerusalem. Now that we know the true location of Jerusalem, we can look back and we can see and confirm with correctness the true location of the Promised Land. Now that we know the true location of the Promised Land, and we have the correct information, and with that correct information, now we have the correct location of the Exodus route. So knowing the correct location of Jerusalem, we will automatically know the correct location of the Exodus route. Also, knowing the correct location of the Dead Sea and any other structures and features and cities within the tribe of Judah will give us the correct location of the Exodus route. Now, once again, knowing the correct location of the Dead Sea, of Jerusalem, and of any other cities and structures and mountains and rivers in the tribe of Judah, those things will validate, authenticate, and give us the correct location of the Exodus route, because all of those things are in the Promised Land that Moses himself saw with his own eyes on Pisgah, Mount Abarim. So that's another piece of information that gave us the correct location of the Exodus route, which took place in Africa. It began in Zambia, Zimbabwe, and Botswana. and they journeyed, making their way through South Africa, and they went west to Namibia. That's the location of the Exodus route, and this is it here. And one of the things that has come to the open in looking at the Exodus route is the Mount Sinai. Now we know the true location of Mount Sinai. Its true location is in South Africa, the so-called Northern Cape, the district, Sayanda district. And the word Sayanda, this word has the Ivri word Sinai, S-I-N-A-Y, and you see the letters here in the word Sayanda, S-I-N-A-Y. The letters are rearranged to make up a word that is a place name to hide the Ivri word Sinai. So in this place name Sayanda is the Ivri word Sinai, and this is called the Sayanda District Northern Cape. This is the location of Mount Sinai. This is what you're looking at through satellite. This is it here. The true mountain and true location. But this is it, the Exodus route. This is it, this is its location.